The worst part isn't that she's dead. The worst part is that she won't stop talking. I've been trapped up here for 3 days now. The ladder broke when I climbed up to hide. Now I'm stuck in this dusty space above my house with the woman who murdered my mom, dad, and little sister Lucy last Tuesday night. She sits in the corner grinning at me with teeth that look too big for her mouth. Her gray hair hangs in greasy strings around her face. The knife wound in her chest still leaks dark stuff onto the wooden floor. "You're getting skinny, boy," she says in that scratchy voice. "Good thing, too. Fat kids don't taste as sweet." I press my back against the far wall and try not to look at her, but there's nowhere else to go in this tiny space. The attic runs the length of our house, but it's only about 4 feet tall. I have to crawl everywhere. My stomach makes loud growling noises. I haven't eaten since Sunday. The last thing I had was a peanut butter sandwich Mom made before she went to bed, before this woman came through our back door with that big kitchen knife. "I can hear your belly talking," the dead lady says. She licks her lips with a tongue that's turned black. Sounds hungry. Sounds desperate. I close my eyes and try to remember how I got here. Try to make sense of what happened. But thinking about that night makes my hands shake. It started when I heard Lucy scream. I was in my room playing video games with my headphones on. At first I thought she was just having another bad dream. Lucy got scared a lot since Mom and Dad started fighting more. But then I heard Mom yell. Not the kind of yell she used when we were in trouble. This was different. This was pure fear. I took off my headphones and listened. The house had gone quiet. Too quiet. Even the old heater that always made noise had stopped running. "Mom?" I called out. No answer. I opened my bedroom door and stepped into the hallway. The lights were off downstairs. That was weird because Mom always kept the kitchen light on until everyone went to bed. "Dad?" I tried again. Still nothing. That's when I smelled it. Something metallic and sharp, like when you cut your finger and suck on it, but stronger. Much stronger. I walked to the top of the stairs and looked down. The living room was dark, except for the glow from the TV. Dad's favorite show was still playing, the one about fishing that he watched every night. But Dad wasn't in his chair. I called for Lucy next. My little sister always answered when I called her name. She looked up to me, said I was the best big brother in the world, but now there was only silence. The metallic smell got stronger as I went downstairs. My bare feet stuck to something wet on the kitchen floor. I reached for the light switch. That's when I saw them. Mom was by the sink. Dad was near the table. Lucy was still in her princess pajamas by the back door. They weren't moving. They would never move again. And standing over Lucy with a bloody knife was the old lady from down the street, Mrs. Blackwood. She'd lived in our neighborhood for years. Always seemed nice enough. Waved when we drove past her house. Now she stood in our kitchen, covered in my family's blood. "There's the last one," she said when she saw me. Her voice sounded different than before. Rougher, like she'd been gargling rocks. "I was wondering when you'd come down." I ran, turned around and ran as fast as I could, back up the stairs, past my room, to the end of the hall where Dad kept the pull-down ladder to the attic. I yanked on the rope and the ladder came down. Climbed up as fast as I could, pulled the ladder up behind me just as Mrs. Blackwood reached the hallway. "You can't hide forever, boy," she called up. "I'll wait. I'm good at waiting." And she did wait, for hours. I heard her walking around downstairs, opening doors, moving things around. Sometimes she would stand right under the attic opening and laugh. That laugh. It didn't sound human. Morning came and the house got quiet again. I thought maybe she had left. Maybe I could climb down and run to the neighbors, call the police, tell them what happened. But when I tried to lower the ladder, it fell apart in my hands. The old wood split right down the middle. Both pieces crashed to the floor below with a loud bang. "Having trouble, sweetie?" Mrs. Blackwood's voice came from my parents' bedroom. She was still here, still waiting. That was 3 days ago. Since then, she's been talking to me almost nonstop, telling me things about my family, things she shouldn't know, like how Dad used to wet the bed until he was 12, how Mom once stole $20 from her sister's purse when they were kids, how Lucy was afraid of butterflies because she thought they were flying spiders. "How do you know all that?" I asked her yesterday. She grinned up at the attic opening. "Dead people tell me things. Your mommy told me lots of things before I stuck her. Your daddy begged real pretty, too." I wanted to cover my ears, wanted to stop hearing her voice, but she just kept talking. Lucy was the best, though. So small, so scared. She kept asking for her big brother, kept saying you would save her. Mrs. Blackwood made a clicking sound with her tongue. "But you didn't save her, did you? You ran away and hid like a little mouse." "Stop it!" "Stop what?" "Stop telling the truth. You could have helped them, could have tried to fight me, but you chose to save yourself instead." She was right. I did run. I left my family down there with a crazy woman with a knife. What kind of brother does that? What kind of son? The guilt felt worse than the hunger, worse than the thirst. My mouth was so dry now that my tongue felt like sandpaper. There were some old water bottles up here, but they were all empty. "Getting thirsty?" Mrs. Blackwood asked. "I can smell it on you. That desperation, that need." I looked down at her through the opening. She was standing right below me now. The knife wound in her chest had gotten bigger. I could see inside her body, see things that should be covered up. "You're dead," I said. "I saw Dad hit you with the baseball bat. Saw you fall down and stop moving." "Dead doesn't mean gone, boy. Dead just means different." She was right about that, too. Dad had grabbed his bat from the closet and swung it at her head. The sound it made was awful, like a watermelon hitting concrete. Mrs. Blackwood dropped the knife and collapsed, but that didn't bring my family back. And somehow, it didn't keep her down either. "Why?" I asked. "Why did you kill them?" Mrs. Blackwood tilted her head like a bird. "Because I was hungry. So very hungry. And they looked so tasty. People don't eat people. Dead people do. Dead people eat whatever they can catch." She walked away from the opening. I heard her moving around the house again, opening the refrigerator, running water in the sink, acting like she lived here now. The sound of running water made my thirst worse. I tried to think of something else, tried to remember good times with my family, but every happy memory got twisted up with what happened Tuesday night. I remembered last Christmas when Lucy got so excited about her new doll that she cried happy tears. But now I could only see her crying different tears, scared tears, as Mrs. Blackwood stood over her with that knife. I remember Dad teaching me to ride my bike in the driveway, how proud he looked when I finally got it. But now I could only see the look on his face when he realized the crazy lady was in our house, when he knew he had to protect us. I remembered Mom singing in the kitchen while she made dinner. She had a pretty voice, always sang old songs from when she was young, But now I could only hear her screaming. "Stop thinking about them," Mrs. Blackwood called from downstairs. "They're gone. You're stuck with me now." "I'm not stuck with you. I'm stuck up here away from you." "Same thing, sweetie. We're both trapped in this house together, forever and ever." That word made me feel sick. Forever. How long could I survive up here? A person could live weeks without food, but only days without water. I was already getting weak. My legs felt shaky when I tried to stand up. Maybe that was her plan. Maybe she was waiting for me to get too weak to fight back. Then she could find a way up here and finish what she started. "I can hear you thinking," she said. "Hear all those scary thoughts bouncing around in your head. You're wondering how long you have left." I didn't answer. Didn't want to give her the satisfaction. "Want to know a secret?" she continued. "I don't need to come up there. You'll come down to me. Thirst will make you do it. Hunger will make you crazy." She was probably right. I was already starting to see things that weren't there. Little movements in the corners, shadows that looked like spiders. My brain was playing tricks on me. "Or maybe you'll jump," Mrs. Blackwood said. "Save us both some time. Just come down head first. Make it quick." "I'm not jumping." Everyone jumps eventually. When the pain gets bad enough. When the hopelessness sets in. I crawled to the other end of the attic, away from her voice. But I could still hear her talking. The sound seemed to follow me everywhere. "Your parents jumped, you know. Not literally, but they gave up. I could see it in their eyes right before the end. That moment when they realized nobody was coming to save them." "Shut up." Lucy didn't give up, though. Fought until the very end. Scratched my arms all up. "See?" She held up her hand so I could see the marks. Feisty little thing, just like her big brother. I pressed my palms against my ears, but it didn't help. Her voice seemed to come from inside my head now. "You're going to give up too. Might take another day or two, but you'll break. They always break. I'm not like them." "No? Then why are you hiding up there instead of down here fighting me?" That question hit hard because I'd been asking myself the same thing. Why was I hiding? Why didn't I try to help my family? Why did I run instead of fight? The answer was simple. I was scared. Scared and weak and useless. "There it is," Mrs. Blackwood said. "I can smell the shame on you now. Thick and sour. You know what you are, don't you?" I crawled back to the opening and looked down at her. "What am I? A coward, just like your daddy. He wet himself when he saw me coming, actual pee running down his legs. Dad wasn't a coward. He tried to protect us. Too little, too late. Should have done better. Should have been stronger. She was baiting me, trying to make me angry enough to do something stupid. But part of me wanted to take that bait. Part of me wanted to jump down there and try to hurt her. "Come on down, boy. Let's finish this dance. You're already dead. How can I hurt something that's already dead? You can try. Might make you feel better about letting your family die." The anger built up inside me like pressure in a pot, hot and dangerous. My hands curled into fists. My muscles got tight. "That's it," Mrs. Blackwood said. "Feel that rage. Use it. Come down here and show me what you're made of." I almost did it. Almost jumped down there and tried to fight her with my bare hands. But then I remembered Dad with his baseball bat. Remember how it didn't matter in the end. "Smart boy," she said when I stayed put. "You know it wouldn't work. Know you'd just end up like them. The anger faded and left me feeling empty, hollow. Maybe she was right. Maybe I was just going to waste away up here while she waited below. "Tell you what," Mrs. Blackwood said, "I'll make you a deal." I didn't want to hear her deal. Didn't want to talk to her at all. But I was so lonely, so desperate for any kind of conversation that wasn't just in my head. "I'm listening. Come down here and I'll make it quick. No playing around. No making it last. Just one fast cut and then you can be with your family again." "They're not anywhere. They're just dead." "How do you know? Maybe there's something after. Maybe they're waiting for you." The idea was tempting. Being with Mom and Dad and Lucy again. No more guilt. No more hiding. No more being afraid. "All you have to do is climb down," she continued. "Or jump if you want. Either way works." I thought about it. Really thought about it. What did I have to live for anyway? My family was gone. I was trapped up here with no way out. Even if I somehow survived, what then? Foster homes? Living with relatives who didn't really want me? "That's right," Mrs. Blackwood said. "Think it through. What's the point of hanging on?" But then I remembered something Lucy used to say. She always told me I was brave. Said I could do anything if I tried hard enough. She believed in me even when I didn't believe in myself. If I gave up now, what would that say about her faith in me? What would that say about all the time she looked up to me like I was some kind of hero? "Lucy was wrong about you," Mrs. Blackwood said like she could read my thoughts. "You're not brave. You're not a hero. You're just a scared little boy who let his family die." Maybe, but I'm still here. For now. She walked away from the opening again. I heard her in the living room moving furniture around, making scraping sounds across the floor. What was she doing down there? The sounds went on for about an hour. Heavy things being dragged, wood splintering, glass breaking. It sounded like she was tearing the house apart. Then everything went quiet again. "Mrs. Blackwood," I called out. No answer. I crawled to the opening and looked down. The hallway was empty, no sign of her anywhere. Maybe she had finally left. Maybe I could find a way down and escape. But how? The ladder was broken. The attic opening was about 10 feet off the ground. If I jumped and hurt myself, I'd be helpless. Easy prey if she came back. I needed to think of another way. There had to be something up here I could use. Some way to make a rope or find another exit. I started searching through the old stuff stored in the attic. Christmas decorations. Clothes that didn't fit anymore. Photo albums full of pictures I didn't want to look at. In one corner, I found a box of my baby clothes. Mom had saved everything. Every little outfit Lucy and I had ever worn. She always said she wanted to keep them for when we had kids of our own. Now she'd never see that happen. I pushed the box away and kept looking. Found Dad's old camping gear. Sleeping bags and tent poles and a lantern that didn't work anymore. He used to take us camping every summer when we were little. Those were good times. Before work got busy and Mom got sad and everything started falling apart, back when our family was happy. I found more boxes, old toys, school papers with gold stars on them. A trophy I won in Little League when I was 8. Mom and Dad came to every game that season, even the ones where I struck out 3 times. "Looking for something special?" Mrs. Blackwood's voice came from right below the opening. I jumped and knocked over a box of Christmas ornaments. They scattered across the attic floor with tiny jingling sounds. "Careful up there," she said. "Don't want you to hurt yourself. That's my job." She was back. I hadn't heard her come into the hallway. How long had she been standing there watching me search through the boxes? "Find anything useful?" she asked. "Maybe something to help you get down here?" I didn't answer. Didn't want to let her know what I was thinking. "Or maybe you found some old memories, something to make you sad. I love it when you get sad. Makes you taste better." I crawled away from the opening, back to the far corner where I'd been hiding. But now that space felt too small, like the walls were getting closer. "You know what I found downstairs?" Mrs. Blackwood said. "Pictures. Lots and lots of pictures. Your whole family smiling and laughing, having fun without me." I tried not to listen, tried to focus on something else, but her voice cut through everything. "There's one picture I really like. It's from last summer. You and Lucy are at the beach building a sandcastle. She's looking at you like you're the most important person in the world." My throat got tight. I remembered that day. Lucy had spent hours working on that castle. She wanted it to be perfect. When the waves finally washed it away, she cried until I promised to help her build an even better one next time. There would never be a next time. "Want to know what she said about you right before I cut her throat?" Mrs. Blackwood asked. "No." "She said you would come save her. Said her big brother always saved her from the monsters under her bed. But I wasn't under her bed, was I? I was right there in the kitchen with a great big knife." I put my hands over my ears, but it didn't help. Her voice seemed to come from inside my skull. She kept looking toward the stairs, kept waiting for you to come running down like some kind of superhero. But you never came. You hid up there like a scared little rabbit. Stop it. She died waiting for you. Died wondering why her hero brother didn't love her enough to try and save her. The words hurt worse than being stabbed, because they were true. I had hidden while my little sister got murdered. I had let her down when she needed me most. "That's right," Mrs. Blackwood said. "Feel that pain. Let it eat you up inside. You deserve every bit of it." I started crying, couldn't help it. The tears came out hot and angry and full of shame. I wiped my nose on my shirt sleeve and tried to stop, but they kept coming. "Crying won't bring them back," she said. "Won't change what you did. Won't make you any less of a failure." Maybe she was right. Maybe I was a failure. Maybe I didn't deserve to live when they were all dead. But crying felt good somehow, like letting poison out of my body. I cried for Lucy and her sandcastles. I cried for Mom and her pretty singing voice. I cried for Dad and all the camping trips we'd never take. And I cried for myself, for being alone and scared and trapped in this terrible place with this terrible woman. "Done feeling sorry for yourself?" Mrs. Blackwood asked after a while. I wiped my eyes and looked down at her. She was still standing in the same spot, still grinning with those two big teeth. "Good," she said. "Now we can get back to business. Back to you coming down here so I can finish what I started." "I'm not coming down." "You will. Sooner or later, you will." She walked away again. I heard her footsteps going down the stairs. Then more sounds from the living room, more furniture being moved around. What was she doing down there? What was she planning? I crawled to a different part of the attic, near the front of the house where there was a small window. It was too small to climb through, but at least I could see outside. The neighborhood looked normal, houses with neat yards, Cars parked in driveways, a few kids riding bikes down the street. Nobody seemed to know what had happened in our house. If I could somehow signal to one of them, get their attention, make them call the police. I looked around for something to throw at the window, something that would make noise. Found an old music box that used to play Lucy's favorite song. I wound it up, and the tiny ballerina inside started spinning. The melody filled the attic, sweet and sad and full of memories I didn't want to think about. Lucy used to dance to this song, used to spin around the living room with her arms out like the ballerina. Mom would clap and Dad would whistle, and I would pretend it was silly, but secretly I thought it was beautiful. Now the song just made me feel empty inside. I threw the music box at the window as hard as I could. The glass cracked but didn't break. The music box fell to the attic floor and the song stopped playing. "What are you doing up there?" Mrs. Blackwood called from downstairs. "Making noise? Trying to get someone's attention?" I grabbed an old trophy and threw it at the window too. This time the glass broke with a loud crash. Pieces fell down into the yard below. "Help!" I yelled as loud as I could. "Help me! Someone help me!" A woman walking her dog across the street looked up at the house. She stared at the broken window for a few seconds, then kept walking. "Help!" I yelled again. "Please help me!" The woman was already too far away. She hadn't heard me or didn't care. "Nobody's coming to save you," Mrs. Blackwood said. She was back in the hallway now, standing right under the opening. Nobody cares about one scared little boy. She was probably right. The neighbors barely knew us. We kept to ourselves mostly, didn't have big parties or make lots of noise. We were just the quiet family that lived in the blue house on Maple Street. Now we were the dead family that lived in the blue house on Maple Street. Except for me, I was still alive. For now. "You know what your problem is?" Mrs. Blackwood asked. "You think someone's going to save you. Think someone's going to swoop in at the last minute and make everything okay." I didn't answer. I was looking through the broken window again, hoping to see another person walking by, another chance to call for help. "But that's not how life works," she continued. "Nobody saved your parents. Nobody saved little Lucy. And nobody's going to save you." A police car drove down the street. My whole body got excited. This was it. This was my chance. "Help!" I screamed at the top of my lungs. "Police, help me! I'm trapped in the attic!" The police car kept driving. Didn't even slow down. The officer inside was probably listening to music or talking on his radio. He never looked up at our house. "See?" Mrs. Blackwood said. "Even the police don't care about you." The hope I'd felt turned into something cold and hard in my chest. She was right. Nobody was coming. Nobody cared. I was completely alone. "Ready to give up yet?" she asked. "Ready to come down here and end this?" I looked down at her through the opening. Her gray hair was messier now. Her clothes were covered in more dark stains. The hole in her chest had gotten even bigger. "What happens after?" I asked. "After you kill me?" "After? There is no after. Just darkness. Just nothing." "What about you? What happens to you?" She tilted her head and thought about it. "I don't know. Never thought about it. Been too busy being hungry." "Hungry for what exactly?" "For life? For warmth? For the thing that makes people different from dead people." I didn't understand what she meant, but I could see something in her cloudy eyes, something that might have been sadness. Were you always like this? I asked. Always hungry for people? Used to be normal. Used to bake cookies and watch game shows and complain about the weather. What changed? She was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice sounded different, less scratchy, more like a regular person. I got sick. Real sick. The kind of sick that eats you up from the inside. Took months to die. Long, painful months. I found myself leaning closer to the opening, listening to her story. Nobody came to visit. No family, no friends. Just me and the pain and the smell of my own body rotting away. She looked up at me with those cloudy eyes. For a second, she almost looked human. When I finally died, I thought it would be over. Thought the pain would stop, but it didn't. It got worse, and I got hungry. So very hungry. Hungry for what? For what I never had when I was alive. Love. Family. People who cared about me. I felt something weird in my chest. Something that might have been pity. This crazy dead woman who killed my family was also lonely and sad and scared. Just like me. But eating people doesn't give you love, I said. But it makes the hunger go away for a little while. Makes me feel warm inside. Makes me feel alive. There has to be another way. You think I haven't tried? You think I wanted to become this thing? Her voice was getting scratchy again. The moment of humanity was fading away. I tried everything. Tried to be good. Tried to ignore the hunger. But it always wins. It always makes me do terrible things. She started pacing back and forth under the opening. Her movements were getting more jerky, more unnatural. And now I'm so hungry I can barely think straight. So hungry I might do something even worse than what I did to your family. What could be worse? She stopped pacing and looked up at me. Her grin was back, wide and terrible. I could keep you alive while I eat you. Start with your fingers and toes. Work my way up. Make it last for days. The pity I'd felt disappeared. This wasn't a sad, lonely woman anymore. This was a monster. But I'm feeling generous today, she continued. Come down here and I'll make it quick. One cut across the throat, and you'll be with your family in seconds. No. Then I guess we do this the hard way. She walked away from the opening. I heard her going downstairs again. Then silence. What was she planning now? What was the hard way? I didn't have to wait long to find out. The smell hit me first. Smoke. Coming from downstairs. Then I heard the crackling sound. Like wood burning in a fireplace. But we didn't have a fireplace. I crawled to the opening and looked down. Orange light was dancing on the hallway walls. The light of flames. Mrs. Blackwood had set the house on fire. You can come down now, she called from somewhere in the smoke. Or you can burn to death up there. Your choice. The smell was getting stronger. Thick gray smoke started drifting up through the opening. I coughed and covered my mouth with my shirt. She was really doing it. She was burning down the house with me trapped inside. The temperature in the attic started to rise. Not just from the fire below, but from the sun beating down on the roof above. I was going to cook like food in an oven. I had to get out of here. Had to find another way down. I crawled to the broken window and looked out. It was about 20 feet to the ground. Too far to jump without getting hurt. but there was a tree nearby, an old oak tree with thick branches. If I could somehow get to that tree, climb down to the yard, run to the neighbors. The smoke was getting thicker, making it hard to breathe, making my eyes water. I looked at the distance between the window and the nearest branch. About 6 feet, maybe 7. I'd have to jump and hope I could grab on. If I missed, I'd fall 20 feet onto concrete, probably break my neck. If I stayed here, I'd burn to death or suffocate from the smoke. Not much of a choice. I knocked out the remaining glass in the window frame, cut my hand on a sharp piece but didn't care. The cuts were small compared to what would happen if I stayed. The smoke was really thick now. I could barely see anything. The crackling sounds were getting louder. I stuck my head out the window and looked down. The ground seemed even farther away than before. "Last chance!" Mrs. Blackwood yelled from somewhere in the house. "Come down here and die quick!" I took a deep breath of clean air and climbed onto the windowsill. My legs were shaking so bad I almost fell right away. The tree branch looked close enough to reach. I hoped. I thought about Lucy one more time, about how she always believed I was brave. Maybe she was right. Maybe I was brave enough to try this crazy jump. I pushed off from the windowsill as hard as I could. For a second, I was flying through the air. No ground under my feet, no walls around me. Just empty space and the smell of smoke. Then my hands hit the tree branch. The bark scraped against my palms, but I held on. My body swung forward and slammed into the trunk. The air got knocked out of my lungs, but I was alive. I was out of the house. I climbed down the tree as fast as I could, dropped the last few feet to the grass, and ran toward the neighbor's house. Behind me, orange flames were starting to show in the windows of my house. The fire was spreading fast. I pounded on Mrs. Patterson's door. She opened it and gasped when she saw me. "Tommy, what happened to you? You're covered in soot." "Fire," I gasped. "House is on fire. Call 911. She grabbed her phone and dialed while I collapsed on her front porch. My whole body was shaking, from fear, from exhaustion, from relief at being alive. The fire trucks came screaming down the street a few minutes later. Police cars, too, and an ambulance. I watched from Mrs. Patterson's yard as the firefighters sprayed water on my house. But it was too late. The flames had spread everywhere. My house was gone. My family was gone. Everything I'd ever known was turning into smoke and ash. "Did anyone else get out?" one of the firefighters asked me. I shook my head. How could I explain that my family was already dead? That the person who killed them had burned down the house trying to kill me too? "We need to search for survivors," the firefighter said to his partner. "Don't go in there," I said. "She's still inside. The woman who started the fire." What woman? How could I explain about Mrs. Blackwood? How could I tell them she was already dead before the fire started? "The neighbor," I said finally. "Mrs. Blackwood from down the street. She was in our house." The firefighters looked at each other. One of them spoke into his radio. "We need to check on a resident. Blackwood. Possible victim inside the structure." They kept fighting the fire for another hour. When it was finally out, the house was just a black skeleton. Nothing left but charred wood and ash. The fire chief came over to talk to me. "Son, we searched the whole house, found 3 bodies in what used to be the kitchen, but no sign of anyone named Blackwood." "She was there," I said. She's the one who started the fire. We'll investigate everything, but right now, we need to get you checked out by the paramedics. The paramedics looked at my cuts and gave me oxygen for the smoke I'd breathed. They said I was lucky to be alive. Lucky. That's not how I felt. A police detective came to talk to me, asked lots of questions about what happened. I told him about hearing screams, about finding my family dead, about hiding in the attic. I didn't tell him about Mrs. Blackwood talking to me, about her being dead but still moving around, about her trying to get me to come downstairs. Some things are too crazy to explain. They took me to the hospital for more tests, then to the police station to talk to more detectives. Finally, they called my aunt and uncle from the next town over. The newspaper said it was a tragic murder-suicide. Said Mrs. Blackwood from down the street had killed my family and then set fire to the house before dying in the flames. But they never found her body, never found any trace of her at all. The police said the fire must have burned her up completely. Said sometimes that happens in really hot fires. I knew better. I knew she had been dead long before the fire started. I knew she had burned up in a different way. Maybe when the house burned down, whatever was keeping her moving around got destroyed too. Maybe she finally found the peace she'd been looking for. Or maybe she's still out there somewhere. Still hungry, still looking for another family to destroy. I live with my aunt and uncle now. They're nice people. They try to make me feel at home. But it's not the same. Nothing will ever be the same. Sometimes at night I smell smoke. Sometimes I hear scratchy voices calling my name. Sometimes I see gray hair and two big teeth in the shadows. The doctors say it's trauma. Say my brain is trying to process what happened. They give me pills and tell me to talk about my feelings. But I know the truth. Some hungers never go away. Some dead things don't stay buried. And some monsters keep looking for new victims even after their old ones are gone. I still have nightmares about that attic. About being trapped up there with nowhere to go. About hearing that voice telling me horrible things about my family. But I also dream about them sometimes. Mom and Dad and Lucy. They tell me they're okay. Tell me they're proud of me for surviving. Tell me it's not my fault. I want to believe them. I want to think they're really somewhere safe and happy. But part of me wonders if they're just as trapped as I was. Just as stuck between one place and another. Part of me wonders if we're all still in that house somehow. Still hiding from something we can't escape. Still waiting for someone to save us. But nobody's coming. Nobody ever comes. And the worst part is, I'm starting to get hungry too. Not for food, for something else. Something warm and alive and full of love. Something that might make the emptiness inside me go away. Just like Mrs. Blackwood. Maybe that's how it starts. Maybe that's how monsters are made. One dead family at a time.